Greetings, this is the Questing GMs. It's RPG a Day 2020 day number 8, and the word of the day today is shade. If I was being a bit lazy, I would probably just throw shade on a few things that I have to say about RPGs. But in the spirit of trying to spread positivity, I will not be going down that direction. Another word that I could go with shade is the idea that everything in RPGs is always a shade of everything. It's by degrees, not in absolutes. Anything can work as long as there's a variance to how far you're going with a certain idea, and how far you're going with your players and so forth. And everything is all a compromise and an agreement. Maybe a controversial take, but that's my personal belief about role-playing games and how we play them. What I'm actually interested in to talk about in regards to the word shade is actually more in reference to the idea of shade and shadows, because the idea that I want to really explore a little bit and maybe throw a little bit of shade on some things is shadows. Funnily enough, not a very well explored area, I think, in role-playing games, or at least the ones that I'm familiar with anyways. And there's a lot of potential and necessity with shade and shadows, because if you think about, and this is going to be very common in any in any D&D game, when there is a stealth encounter, and the most obvious places that you want to have when performing a stealth mission is is shadows, it's cover. You want them for reasons of whether you're trying to sneak past something, like sneak past a guard, or sneak past obstacles, or you are trying to hide in it. And this can actually happen in combat, like you're trying to hide to gain the element of surprise, or maybe your target, or anyone who gets in the way. So shade is something that actually comes in, relatively often, maybe in the lower levels of play, or maybe of a certain power level. But it's not something that I feel like it's been really explored or being really given much attention, difference to other mechanics, which is a shame. I think there is actually a lot of nuance. There's a lot of degrees. There's a lot of shade in creating a stealth-based mechanic, especially one that uses lighting and shade in your favor, or at least one of the factors that you can use in your favor. Even so, that even if you are placed in a position of complete shadow, complete darkness, and you have shade, there is still a way for you to be discovered, and that's the tell. And the tell is, most typically noise. I guess there's this relationship between light and sound that is often not really given much thought, or not made complex enough to be interesting to have some nuance. So if you haven't already figured out, the most obvious example that I'm going to give is Dungeons and Dragons, that's particularly 5th edition. In 5th edition, the rules of light and darkness are pretty straightforward. They are basically only about 3 levels of shade. One is lightly obscured, one is heavily obscured, and then there is darkness, complete darkness. So to put it simply, if you are lightly obscured, any attack roll that you makes with an advantage. Any attack roll made against you has disadvantage. If you are in a heavily obscured area, the person who is in the area and the person who's outside the area are effectively blind towards each other, so they actually cannot see each other, in a heavily obscured area. And then finally, there's darkness, which is effectively blinds everybody who's in it. It's simple, but yet, like I said, it for me, it actually makes things more complicated from a management standpoint, rather than from a decision making standpoint or an action standpoint of like what can the players choose to do if they are within a heavily obscured or lightly obscured area, or in a darkness area. And the implications, like I said, is all about combat. And why I say it's complicated is because, for example, if I'm someone who's inside a heavily obscured area, we are both, and my target is outside of it, we are both effectively blind, and therefore it makes attacks much slower, because we have both disadvantage, and it's just going to be a rolling contest. and if depending on your DM, there could be a matter of guesswork that's involved with it. That's why I think sound is actually another interesting factor. And if you read the rules as written, there's not a lot of good guidance on uh, what constitutes as making sounds. So that falls a lot into adjudication by the DM, and I would believe most players will not agree with the adjudications made by the DM. So then it becomes an argument and a quarrel about rule specifics, which the rules don't really provide. All in all, I would say, as written, the D&D 5e rules are generally not really conducive for how shade is used, and it's definitely is very opposed or unhelpful in the areas of stealth. Yes, there are some rules regards to being hidden and having the right amount of obscurity to protect you to remain hidden, being unseen and all that, and that's another whole different story of complication there. But as I said, all these complications is mostly due to a lack of rather codified rules of shade and stealth. I'm not taking this as a to say that this is why D&D is such a terrible game, because obviously it's stealth is maybe probably not the main intent of the game, despite there being a lot of monsters and abilities that relies on staying in shadows, and maybe it's an unexpected area that players actually end up using stealth more than the DM, or than the DM expected, or than the rules expected, because of this lack of coherence. It actually caused even having just very bare bone coding for it, codified mechanics for stealth, it actually causes more frustrations, and there's also always the constant argument that why shouldn't a character or NPC or whatnot be able to perform an instant kill if they are striking from the shadows, and that's all a different argument. So, but what I'm trying to say is, RPGs tend not to put a lot of emphasis on stealth, and I think there's a lot of lost potential for that. There's a lot of lost opportunity for that. So I'm just going to be throwing out some potential ideas. I obviously I'm not I haven't it all figured out yet, but I think there's some inspirations that we can look into to really understand, or to have a few general ideas, or few pointers of how we can actually codify stealth as a mechanic, and especially in relation to shadows and shades. So if we look, and I think one of the easiest example to look at is video games. And video games has stealth based video games is definitely one of the genres that has some real attractions, and one of the earliest games that I know that utilizes some shadow like elements as one of its main gameplay would be definitely Thief, the Dark Project. Even though I have never played myself, but I know it by reputation. But the ones that I have personal experience with is definitely the Splinter Cell games. So there's already an interesting variance between fantasy magic based stealth and modern technology based stealth. And but lighting and shadows definitely play an element in how it's important to the genre, and how it influences gameplay decisions. I'm definitely interested in looking for more RPGs, or looking for any RPG that has an emphasis on this. And if video games have done it, there is definitely some way we can reverse engineer the whole idea back into role-playing games. And I think the challenge is not really about environmental factors. It's more about making stealth nuanced enough to have several layers in terms of decision making and choice of options, and maybe even ability optimization towards a specific direction. It could be by having more degrees of stealth, what kind of shadows that allows someone to be completely hidden, what kind of shadows that allows someone being partially hidden, what kind of stealth that requires additional support, whether from proper tools, proper gear, proper magic items, maybe even proper clothing, even if you want to go for that kind of that level of detail. And then there's obviously definitions of why you cannot be hidden at all. You know, maybe if you're literally standing in bright daylight with no cover or no cover or concealment, then you know those are fine reasons why you shouldn't have any benefits of shades. And then I would definitely like to see something that's more integrated with other elements of stealth. Like I said, sound is definitely one of the more natural ones. I can't really think of anything else, but I would definitely like to see a much more robust stealth system. You know, and even if it's not built around shadows and shades, but I would hope that would be a very important element. So if you have read any RPGs, and extra points if it's something that's more that relies on stealth, maybe a heist related RPG, you know, drop down in the comments, let me know. Or if you have your own ideas about how stealth and shade can be a component of a stealth mechanics, I'll be definitely interested to hear how it can be done in a role-playing format. So I guess that'll be all for my thoughts on Shade for RPGADay 2020, day number 8, and I'll be back very soon for day number 9. So this is the Questing GM signing out for now.